A lot of students come to my classes thinking that the terms Shiva and Shakti mean the divine masculine and the divine feminine, but in this really rich tapestry of non-dual Tantra, they represent so much more. So understanding the principles of Shiva and Shakti can literally revolutionize how you experience everything from your work to your relationships to the most ordinary moments of your day. So if you're ready for that radical shift, then stick around as we unpack this really profound and practical wisdom of Shiva and Shakti. Hey there, everyone. I'm Lisa Engles Witter, and welcome to my channel where I help spiritual seekers just like you to harness the ancient wisdom of yoga and non-dual Tantra to live an extraordinary life. So the goal of my channel is super simple. It's just to make it easier than ever before for anyone to find happiness and fulfillment in their everyday life by using these teachings that have already been passed down to us for millennia. So before we hop into our topic today, be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I post videos just like this one on a regular basis. So let's go ahead and hop in. All right, so let's dive into the super juicy topic of Shiva and Shakti as we understand it in the non-dual Tantra tradition. So first of all, to get this really clear, Shiva and Shakti are actually two aspects of the one infinite consciousness. So even though we see them as two, and they're portrayed as two, Shiva and Shakti, they represent one infinite consciousness. They are two sides of the one infinite consciousness. So Shiva represents the infinite aspect of consciousness or reality, and Shakti represents the immanent or finite aspect of consciousness or reality. And oftentimes in the depictions that you'll see of Shiva and Shakti, you'll see Shakti standing or sometimes sitting on top of Shiva, who's lying on his back in what looks like what we would think of now as Shavasana pose. But don't be fooled, it's not a pose of submission at all, and we'll sort of look at that a little bit later. Now, I want to be clear that in this short video, I can't give everything about Shiva and Shakti. The teachings are so rich and nuanced and deep that would require, months and months and if not years of study and teaching and all of that on this. But what I wanted to do is just give you a high level, just a taster of Shiva and Shakti. So let's go ahead and look at the first aspect, which is Shiva. We'll unpack Shiva. So again, Shiva is the transcendent aspect of consciousness. Shiva is the infinite ground of being. Shiva is this still, silent spaciousness, also referred to as consciousness or awareness oftentimes. So these terms are used interchangeably when we're talking about Shiva and the characteristics of Shiva. So in non-dual Tantra, this infinite ground of being or this infinite field of awareness is not inert. Just like I said in that depiction of Shiva, of him lying on his back in what looks like Shavasana pose, is not a pose of submission. So Shiva is not inert. Consciousness is not inert. Rather, it's teeming with latent possibilities. In other words, consciousness is alive with potential. Inherent within the infinite ground of being is the potential for every single imaginable expression of experience in the manifest world. So every thought, every action, every emotion, every sensory experience, including, of course, sounds, smells, tastes, textures, appearances, All of it, every perception is a latent potential inherent within consciousness, and every object and every subject is also an inherent potential within consciousness. Every imaginable experience that you can think of, from the most sublime to the most horrific, from the most beautiful to the most disgusting, from the most joyful to the most sorrowful experience, from the most enlightening experience to the most confusing experience, from the most harmonious experience to the most chaotic experience. All of it exists as potential within consciousness. So each of these experiences, again, they're latent potentials within this infinite ground of being. One way that I think is easy to understand this concept of Shiva as the infinite ground of being, as consciousness, or as awareness, is to notice that the one thing that remains constant in any experience that you have is awareness. So there are many other teachers who teach this exact principle. And I'll just give you a little taste of it right here, because it's one that I also like to use when I work with my students. So this awareness, you can think of this field of awareness. It actually hosts and holds everything. And you can check this out for yourself in direct experience. So let's do a little experiment right now together. And I'm going to go through this sort of quickly. Normally I would take a lot more time with this, but you can always rewind the video and listen to this again. But just for this moment, go ahead and close your eyes and simply allow your awareness to expand in all directions. And notice all the sounds in this field of awareness without labeling them. You're probably hearing ambient sounds right now. Depending on where you are, it could be fairly quiet as well. So you're just opening your awareness to all the different sounds in your environment. Might be the sound of wind rustling through leaves just outside your window, or it could be voices in another room, or the sound of someone cooking, or the sound of a radio or TV in another room. But if you just notice all the sounds that you hear, what you'll discover in your direct experience is that every sound arises within your awareness. It's sustained for a certain period of time in your awareness, and then it subsides back into awareness, dissolves, it disappears. But the one thing that remains constant always is awareness. Notice how you're aware when there is a sound. And you're also aware when there isn't a sound. So you just notice that in your direct experience, that the one thing that always remains constant is awareness. And you can do this little experiment with any of your senses. It's best to do it sort of in an isolated, quiet, or not even quiet, doesn't have to be a quiet place, but just taking a little bit of time for yourself without any interruptions to do this, so that you can slow things down and notice that the one thing that remains constant is awareness. And this awareness is this still, silent, spacious ground of being from which, or within which, we would say all things, all phenomena arise or appear to us, and within which all phenomena are sustained. They're maintained for a certain period of time, and into which all these phenomena then subside or dissolve once again. So if you were able to have that experience, and I don't expect that you would be able to if this was your first time doing this, but if you were able to, then you just had a direct experience of this principle of Shiva. So again, it might take a few times doing this, and this is something that I practiced for a long, long time, months and months and months and months, right, to get this. But it can be done quite quickly if you just let go of all labels and all ideas of what you think is real, right? So the teachings on Shiva are much more nuanced and profound than what I'm able to give again in this short video. But for starters, this is a really good place to begin. Shiva is the awareness which holds and hosts all phenomenal experiences, including your thoughts and your emotions. Hey there, I hope you're finding this deep dive enlightening. I just wanted to pause here for a second because if you're eager to elevate these teachings in your own life, then I want to introduce you to something super special. It's the Karmic Warrior Oracle. It's a deck that I personally created. Now, this oracle isn't just a tool. It really is an integral part of how I teach this spiritual path to my students and to my clients. I use this deck all the time in my meditation classes, in my immersive programs, in my one-on-one mentorships to provide what I like to call a personalized prescription for shattering karmic patterns. So the deck has 64 cards, and each one of the 64 cards guides you towards a life of greater freedom and fulfillment by harnessing the law of karma and the wisdom of non-dual Tantra. But that's not it, because this deck also comes with a comprehensive guidebook and a masterclass on how to unlock the Oracle's full potential. So if you're ready to revolutionize your spiritual journey, then click on the link in the description below and make the Karmic Warrior Oracle a really powerful addition to your spiritual toolkit. This isn't just a deck, it really is your personalized roadmap to clarity and freedom, curated by someone who walks this path every single day. So, okay, let's go ahead and get back to unlocking more spiritual wisdom. So that brings us then to Shakti, the finite or the immanent aspect of consciousness. So in imagery, as I said before, she's depicted as being on top of Shiva, representing, I like to think of it as representing the power of consciousness to express itself in form as anything that we can perceive or sense or cognize. So this visual depiction of Shakti on top of Shiva signifies this active dynamism of consciousness. She is, Shakti is power, Shakti is energy, and she comes into form from this ground of this infinite ground of being, from this foundational field of awareness that is Shiva. So Shakti is consciousness expressed as all phenomena that we can experience with our five senses, as well as our thoughts and our emotions. Shakti doesn't only manifest also as these beautiful, elegant things. She can also, and does, also manifest as the most heinous, the most ferocious, the most fear-inducing things that you can think of as well. So going back to our previous little experiment that we did really quickly there with sound, if Shiva is the awareness within which sound arises and appeared, right? Then Shakti is the sound that is arising, that is sustained, and that is eventually subsumed or dissolves back into that field, that infinite field of consciousness. So this is what we mean when we say that Shakti represents the finite or the immanent aspect of reality. It means that everything in the phenomenal world, in the manifest world, comes and goes. It means that everything has a natural cycle that it's going to go through. It has a life cycle. It's born and then it dies. Now, I'm going to take a quick little detour here and say that in this tradition, in the view of non-dual Tantra, yes, things die, but they don't die in the way that we've come to understand death. There's this even deeper teaching within this view of non-dual Tantra that says that when we investigate the reality of phenomena, if we take some time to really investigate whether it's a sound or a thought or an emotion or anything else, what we're going to find is that these phenomena, they don't die, rather they're reabsorbed back into this infinite field of consciousness. They simply change form. So one of the analogies that's used a lot by teachers is this analogy of the ocean and the wave. The wave emerges out of the ocean and it's eventually reabsorbed back into the ocean. The wave is fundamentally made of the same stuff as the ocean, water, right? It's fundamentally made of the same stuff as the ocean, but it appears as a wave for a finite period of time, and then it eventually is subsumed back into the ocean. It doesn't die from the perspective of duality. It seems like it's dead. From the perspective of non-duality, it's just changing form. It's just merging back into the form from which it came. So this is the Shakti principle at play. So of course, again, just like with Shiva, there's much more nuanced aspects of this teaching, but this is just like this high level sketch to give you a taster or a little bit of an introduction to this concept of Shakti and what it really means in this tradition, in this view. So again, Shiva is the infinite or the transcendent aspect of reality, and Shakti is the immanent or the finite aspect of reality. They're two sides, again, they're two sides of the same coin, and they coexist with each other. So in non-dual Tantra, the ultimate understanding is that Shiva and Shakti exist within you, as you, and through you. You are Shiva and you are Shakti. You're both. So Shiva and Shakti really aren't just philosophical or spiritual concepts. They are foundational principles that underlie all of our daily experiences. And when you grasp these foundational principles and you experience them through dedicated practice, then you start to see how Shiva and Shakti are always in this interplay. They're always dancing in every facet of your life. So I want to take a few minutes here just to look at some real life examples. How do these principles, how can they play out in your life? So let's look at work, for instance. Even the most mundane sort of routine activities at work can be infused with this wisdom of Shiva and Shakti. For instance, take like really ordinary tasks of just doing boring emails or having to go to meetings and showing up at meetings. So instead of seeing these as like, mundane tasks that I have to do, you might notice how these are actually activities that are expressions of the one infinite consciousness. The activity, the action or the activity is Shakti. It's that Shakti principle at play. It's an activation of a timeless potentiality within consciousness, Shiva. And so in this way, any task that you do at work can become a unique opportunity to experience this interplay between Shiva and Shakti, form and formless, between the infinite and the immanent. So this change in perception can really lend itself a sense of profound meaning to what we might typically consider as boring or monotonous work. Now, if we look at our relationships, if we take this understanding of Shiva and Shakti into our interpersonal relationships, it's amazing. The experience can be totally transformative, because when we take this principle into our relationships, what's happening is we recognize that I am an expression, Shakti, right, of the one infinite consciousness. And what that means is that we start to understand that there is no real difference between myself and someone else. There's no separateness. This illusion of separateness starts to fade away. It just starts to dissolve. It can no longer hold up as something that's real for us. So just as you are a unique expression, a timeless potential that's inherent within the field of awareness, of consciousness, the same is true for your partner, your friends, your family, even strangers. And this becomes even more profound when we start to think of this in terms of not just people. People are no longer objects out there, but the same is true of plants and animals as well. The entire natural world, everything is a manifestation of this same infinite awareness. So as one teacher likes to put it, everything is what you are, appearing as that. And when you internalize this principle, and you've taken this principle, you've practiced, you've done the practices, and you've internalized it, the understanding has become a lived experience for you, then your perception shifts dramatically. You're no longer confined by these superficial judgments of the color of someone's skin, their gender, or their religion, their political preference, their whatever their affiliations are, their cultural backgrounds. None of that makes a difference anymore. That all gets erased. And what happens is that instead there's this freedom that emerges from all of those societal change. We start to perceive, because we're perceiving the true nature of ourselves, we're also perceiving naturally what unfolds from that is the true nature of others as well. So this particular principle and the practices of the principles can lead to this insight that really changes your relationships and the way that you relate to people, and it also broadens your capacity for compassion. So again, this is really just a little taste of these teachings on Shiva and Shakti, not a full-blown explanation. I recommend the book Tantra Illuminated by Christopher Wallace if this interests you, because that goes into so much more depth. But I do hope that this gave you a little bit better of an idea of what these principles of Shiva and Shakti mean in the non-dual Tantra tradition. So please feel free to comment below, leave your comments. I always get back to those, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I put out videos just like this one on a regular basis. And until next time, stay well and namaste.